Hi, everybody. Good afternoon, and welcome to the next installment of SWEEP's webinar series, Battling Litter and Hazardous Waste in the Digital Era with Rubbish. We are so excited to have you all with us today, and thanks for joining. I'm Sam Yeoman, SWEEP Sustainability Program Manager, and I'll be moderating the Q&A and our conversations during and after our speakers' presentations today. We welcome any and all questions that attendees might have, so please post any that come to mind by using the Q&A tab function, and we'll do our very best to get them all answered. In a moment, I'm going to take a few minutes to introduce our speakers, and then we'll get started. But first, as folks continue to log on, we've got some quick poll questions we'd like y'all to respond to. The first 4 questions are related to today's webinar topic, and the last one is a feeler for what y'all would like to see discussed in future SWEEP webinars. Here you go. Please take a minute or 2 to go through them now. For those of you joining on, there's a poll for you to get started with, so please take a couple of minutes to respond to it. Got a few more people answering right now. All right, let's see the results. So it looks like, yes, majority of you consider litter and hazardous waste to be a problem in the communities where you work and live. That's no surprise. It looks like food wrappers and plastic bottles are the winners for the litter that you commonly see. In terms of hazardous waste, looks like broken glass and animal waste are the 2 types that are commonly seen. And most of you are guessing that that more than 5%, that the sales revenues are depressed by greater than 5% for brick and mortar businesses. And thanks for responding to the potential webinar topics. It's super helpful for us. Looks like people are interested in federal legislative action on plastics and recycling. Thanks everybody for responding. So, all right, now on to speaker introductions. We are thrilled to have Emin Israfil as our main presenter today. Emin is the co-founder and CEO of Rubbish, a San Francisco-based tech company with a mission to create clean, safe, and healthy neighborhoods. Rubbish works with city governments, community benefit districts, universities, stadiums, and large property managers to understand their ecological footprint and develop data-driven solutions for combating litter and hazardous waste. Rubbish's work has been featured by Apple, Google, Accenture, and ABC News. Before Rubbish, Emin lived and worked on 5 continents as a technology consultant for Fortune 100 companies. He has also worked as a teacher and as a wildlife preservation volunteer. After Emin's portion, we'll hear from Sweep's president and founder, Rob Watson. Rob is better known as the founding father of LEED, the largest and fastest growing international green building rating system, and is a top leader in market transformation and developing environmental performance standards worldwide. Rob's leveraged the lessons learned from creating LEED in the early 90s to develop the SWEEP Solid Waste Excellence Performance Standard, a system of market transformation standards geared to move the waste industry towards a more sustainable future. And without further ado, Emin, please, I'll share, and please share your screen and take it away whenever you are ready.
All right, can you see everything okay on your end? Thumbs up, great.
Good.
Well, I watched the previous webinars that Sweep put up in preparation for today. I just wanted to say I really learned a lot, and there's some fantastic guests and content that you guys are putting out there. So it's a real big honor to be one of the speakers on here and to be able to present to you all and your audience. I'm really excited to see where Sweep is going in the next couple of years and to play a small role in that. Like Sam mentioned, my name is Emin Israfil. I'm a New York City native, and I'm presenting here from Columbia University, where Rob is a professor. I didn't account for the fact that it will be a white background, so hopefully I'm not completely camouflaged. But like Sam mentioned, prior to founding Rubbish, I was a CEO of a consulting company that helped Fortune 100 companies break into the App Store. And I was taking a walk with my partner in Brooklyn, where I grew up, and we're discussing our consulting businesses when her pet corgi, Larson, saw a chicken bone on the street and snatched it up, ate it, and he started choking. In the end, he was okay, but we were a little bit shook up. And that's when we started doing research about, hey, are these neighborhoods getting better? Are they getting worse? Is Brooklyn cleaner than Queens? How much money is going into these sanitation services? What new technology is out there? We haven't seen anything new, or I couldn't think of anything new since the 70s advertising campaigns. And that's what led us down kind of a 5-year litter rabbit hole that we're still in, and led us to found Rubbish, which our goal is to create clean, healthy, and sustainable living spaces for everybody. And we do that by creating better tools to clean our shared spaces. 2 of the tools that I'm going to talk to you about today are community snapshots, which I'll focus on. And basically, a community snapshot is a snapshot or a map of all the issues facing your community, whether it's litter, plastic waste, graffiti, hazardous waste, illegal dumping. We help quantify it and map it out so you know the magnitude of the challenges that you're dealing with. One of the other products that we have that's complementary is our community dashboard and direct reporting. And I'll speak very briefly to that. Basically, what that is an ability for anyone who's passing by to quickly scan a QR code and report things like illegal dumping and hazardous waste so it could get resolved quickly without having to worry about things like downloading a special app, creating a special user account, or worrying about who's in charge of cleaning the area, whether it's 311, New York City, a university, or a business improvement district. It doesn't matter. It automatically gets routed to the correct people. And on their end, on the maintenance end, those professionals can be deployed easily, and city officials could see where their people are. But I'm here to talk about community snapshots. And what they do is tell a story about your neighborhood with data. And to reiterate, a community snapshot is a map of the critical issues facing your community, and they help provide a roadmap for improvement. So why is data important? Why are we measuring any of this? Why don't we just pick up the litter and have that be it, and just repeat that? Well, after watching many sweep webinars, I know that this is a big mantra in the sustainability community, and that is you can't improve what you don't measure. And I know sweep has a similar corollary. So whether you're trying to lose weight, do more push-ups, run a faster mile, or clean up your neighborhood, the first essential step is to create a baseline and know the expanse of your problem, or the extent of your problem. So how do snapshots actually help the community? Well, like you already mentioned, it creates a baseline that allows you to track year-over-year improvements. I'll also talk to you about how this data can and has been used to place important infrastructure like garbage and recycling cans where they'll have the greatest impact. Rob is going to talk to you in the second half of this presentation about how these snapshots can help you earn sweep credits. And from an equity point of view, this data helps ensure that all peoples in all areas are being served equally. I grew up in Brooklyn and the Bronx, and I have this crazy idea that I think Westchester Square and East Tremont in the Bronx should be just as clean, healthy, and sustainable as Madison Avenue and Columbus Circle. I'm also going to talk to you about how community benefit districts and other organizations have used this data to apply for additional private and public funds. Lastly, this data is critical for public health and safety. It helps you identify dangerous hotspots. And when you share this data with the community, you're able to get the community behind you and galvanize them behind the common cause. Again, whether that's cleaning up litter, planting more trees, or getting rid of graffiti, this is a crucial step in getting people on board. So I probably don't need to convince a bunch of sustainability professionals why picking up litter and preventing plastic from going into the ocean is bad. But a couple of fun facts that you may not have known is that businesses that invest in additional street cleaning see an average of 7% increase in revenue. So that means mom and pop shops like pizzerias and cafes see more money coming in through their doors. And that's backed by a study done by the San Francisco Office of Economic and Workforce Development. And residents feel happier and are safer. And that's backed by studies done by the World Bank and University of Pennsylvania. I'll be happy to provide links to those studies after the webinar. All right, so we know why getting data is important, and we know why cleaning stuff up is important too. Cleaning litter up is important. But what's step number one of a community snapshot? The first and most important thing that we do is talk to our clients and understand their needs. Whether it's a university, a city government, a state government, a business improvement district, or other large property manager, each one of them will have their own unique challenges that we have to listen to and see what they want to have improved. There is a lot of overlap, so a lot will like to track litter and things like cigarette litter and plastic waste, as well as hazardous waste like poop and needles, among other things. But we don't only track bad things, we also help communities track important infrastructure like bicycle racks or recycling cans or garbage cans. You'll be shocked by the amount of cities that we reach out to and ask them, where are your recycling cans or where are your garbage cans? And they either don't know or they'll fax us a map from 10 years ago that's basically useless. And because each community is unique in its own way, one example of that is the SOMA West Community Benefit District in San Francisco. They were one of the least green areas of San Francisco, meaning they had the least tree cover. So they were interested in identifying areas where they could plant more trees. So we helped them identify empty tree holes, which are these 1 by 1 meter squares in the sidewalk that you've probably seen and maybe tripped over. And we help them track those, as well as other opportunities to plant trees. And with that data, they're able to apply for additional grants and secure additional grants with Friends of the Urban Forest and plant those trees. All right, so now that we know what we're tracking, the next step is to go out there and track it. Sometimes our clients hire us to do it, and other times they would rather do it themselves, in which case we'll provide them with the tools and the training needed to do so. And the third step is to take all this data that we got and compile it into reports and maps that are easy to read and easy to understand. It's really important for us to make this data actionable and easy to understand, so you don't need a PhD in cartography or a degree in something or another just to be able to track what's going on. And we also provide all the raw data for our clients to be able to use internally. So for anyone curious how we collect the data, it's not that complicated. Anyone who's seen a social media app in the past 10 years will probably be pretty familiar with our process. We snap a photo with our iOS app, we categorize it, and then we repeat until we survey the entire area. If you look on the right side of my screen, and if you squint really hard, you'll be able to see a map is generated of all the areas that we went. And you'll see that there's yellow, green, and red sections that correlate to how many items we found in that area. Green means very little litter, yellow means a medium amount, and red means probably too much. We also track things like distance and time, as well as the breakdown, so that you could make sure that you're going to the right areas and check your progress along the way. This is an example of some of the items that we surveyed in our Sacramento, California survey. You'll see a lot of usual suspects that you might suspect, such as large items that were dumped illegally, needles, litter, graffiti, and food waste. But like I mentioned, since every community is unique, one unique challenge that the Sacramento River District was faced with was fires. Now, part of the reasons that they were having these fires in the River District was because of a lack of sanitation services to certain areas where unsheltered people lived. And they would essentially end up burning their trash, which isn't great, but what's worse is sometimes that trash would, that burning trash would light up the tree and bushes next to it. And sometimes those fires would light up homes and commercial real estate next to it. In the past, entire warehouses have been burned down, causing millions of dollars worth of damage. So it's really important to get to the root of the problem and find what are ultimately simple solutions to help prevent these fires. So here is a map that we generated from the Sacramento River District that I was just referring to. Garbage piles is another special category we had to develop for the River District because we're encountering such large piles of garbage that it became inefficient to be able and unworkable to count every single piece of litter. It was when there was 100 or more pieces of litter in a 1 by 1 meter square. But as you could see already, that certain patterns emerge, and here along certain axes here on the northern axis, you'll see areas that would benefit from additional sanitation services here along the southern part of the district as well. Here's another map from the same survey zone, this time characterizing the plastic waste that we found that wasn't included in the garbage piles. So you could already see some similarities and some differences emerging between these two categories. And here's one more map, this time showing the tobacco litter that we found. And you could already see that this is different as well. The tobacco litter was concentrated among commercial corridors in the middle, as well as office buildings up here in the north, and on the beach where people congregate and go have smoke breaks. So we use heat maps for these since there are thousands of items tagged as opposed to several hundred. One example of this kind of data in action comes from an experiment we did on San Francisco's Polk Street. In that experiment, we surveyed an 8-block stretch of San Francisco's Polk Street, and we tracked the litter that was there over the course of months. We surveyed it 3 times per week. After a while, we created a heat map, and we set up a rogue cigarette disposal in the spot where we thought it would be most effective based on the data. We didn't ask anyone for permission. We just bought it on Amazon, painted it pink, and slapped it to a parking meter, hoping that no one would take it down. In the 6 weeks that it was up, we were able to divert over 1,000 cigarettes and reduce cigarette litter in that whole area by 46%. So that seems like an outsized impact based on just one cigarette disposal unit. And that's because cigarette litter is not evenly distributed over those 8 blocks. By putting this infrastructure where it was needed most, we were able to make it the most effective. We also calculated that we were able to save the city of San Francisco $38.03 in litter abatement costs. Just so you know, we came to that number by taking the 75 cents per cigarette pack litter abatement tax that San Francisco charges per cigarette, per pack of cigarettes, and multiplying it by the amount of cigarettes that packs that we diverted. So this is a great proof of why a little bit of data goes a long way. So we were thrilled to find this and that we were able to have this impact. So we were telling everybody. We told DPW, Department of Public Works, we told the mayor, we told anyone who would listen to us on the street. And people did listen. So not long after, other city organizations ended up setting up 5 additional cigarette disposal units in that same corridor. We're like, okay, that's great. Do you mind if we help you maintain this? And they said, sure. So what we did was continue the experiment, and we still counted all the cigarette litter that was on the street, and we counted every single cigarette that went into each of these cigarette disposal units. And the conclusion that we came to, or what we found, was that these 5 additional units barely made a dent in comparison to the one that we put up. And that's because these were installed based on someone on intermittent intervals, based on someone essentially looking at a map and spreading out the location of these at a fairly equal cadence. And this kind of inefficient infrastructure ends up not really helping the community, and ends up costing the city more money, because the city has to pay for the additional disposal units, they have to pay the man hours to install them, and they have to pay the additional labor costs of maintaining them when they get damaged and emptying them. So a case study, one of 2 case studies I want to walk you through is also from San Francisco, this time from the SOMA West District. The SOMA West Community Benefit District was approved in 2019. They were allocated $4 to $5 million, and they were the largest business improvement district in San Francisco, covering over 100 blocks. Prior to them starting services, we got together with the community and we audited the whole radius, or the whole area. And what we found were 28,000 issues that the residents wanted improved. Now, we went back in 2020 after a year of services, and with this data, and repeated the experiment or the survey a second time and analyzed the difference. And what we found was an 85% reduction in human and pet waste, which is honestly great news for anyone who doesn't enjoy stepping over poop on their way to work. Another thing that we found was a 58% reduction in needles. So with this data, SOMA West Community Benefit District was able to do 3 important things. They were able to allocate the resources where they were needed most, and they knew where to concentrate their efforts. They were able to apply for additional grant money. I already told you about how they use this data to get extra funding to plant trees with Friends of the Urban Forest. But they also use this data to get extra city and state grants for additional big belly trash cans that were placed throughout that neighborhood. And thirdly, and perhaps most importantly, they shared this data with the community. And they showed them how it's changed. So a community benefit district takes years to set up, and it needs to be voted on because every resident and every business is charged an extra tax. So SOMA West passed with a pretty narrow margin. But a year later, after residents and businesses saw the transformation in the community, both with their eyes, but also with the transparent data, some of the biggest detractors became their biggest supporters. Businesses and residents that were previously against the SOMA West Community Benefit District became huge fans of it. So another business improvement district or community benefit district, I tend to use those interchangeably, that I want to talk to you about is the River District in Sacramento, California. So just like San Francisco, the River District is a very large community benefit district. The survey area took 3 days to do and covered over 25 linear miles. But like I mentioned before, the challenges that the River District faced were very different than that of SOMA West. In 2021, the River District felt like it was being underserved and underfunded. They felt like they were bearing a disproportionate impact of waste and garbage in their neighborhood, as well as having to deal, needing more resources to deal with the unsheltered community that was residing there. They took these problems to City Hall and asked for additional resources. City Hall did not have this data. And their basic response was, hey, all of Sacramento is facing these issues. There's nothing we could do. We're distributing the efforts and resources as we see best. So that's when the River District commissioned us to survey their entire district, but also do a 1 mile comparison in which we compared a mile of the River District with 1 mile of downtown. And what we found was a dramatic difference. We found that the River District had an 8 times higher incidence of garbage piles. And this confirmed the beliefs of what the River District leaders already suspected, and this served as proof to City Hall that this district really does need more help and does face an outsized burden. Now, for anyone who needs a refresher on what garbage piles are, this is them. They represent public health and ecological hazard. Nearby, we found plenty of dead rodents, stray dogs. We literally saw the seepage of trash into the local waterways, the American River and the Sacramento River. And oftentimes it will block ADA access and wheelchair ramps. So with this data, with these photos in hand, the River District was able to secure additional funding and direct resources to these critical issues. Now, another big challenge that they were tasked with was temporary shelters. And we saw a 39 times higher incidence of temporary shelters in the River District versus downtown. So now is a good moment to pause and acknowledge that each one of those dots that we saw on the previous screen represents the living space for another human being. At Rubbish, we do not track people, and we believe all people deserve the same services to sanitation, healthcare, and food services. And in order to provide these people with those services, it's critical that we have an unbiased and reliable source of truth on these issues. It doesn't help us to bury our head in the sand and ignore the issue. At Rubbish, our mission is to create clean, healthy, and sustainable living spaces for everybody. And that includes the unsheltered community, because we believe that we should all love where we live So this is Jenna Abbott. She's awesome. She's the executive director of the Sacramento River District that I was telling you about. And for years, she was the manager of this large 25-mile property. And she said that this survey was game-changing for her. This is the first time she had the ability to quantify and share the level and the magnitude of the challenges that they were faced with. And she said that this will be serve as a ground zero and be used to show year-over-year improvement going forward. So we're also, like I mentioned before, not all doom and gloom. We like to call out good deeds and good things when we see them. This is an example of a construction crew cleaning up outside the perimeter of their construction site while we were doing the survey in Sacramento. We believe these kind of things should be highlighted just as much as anything else. And in my opinion, a construction company that takes care of the neighborhood and cleans up after themselves is preferable to one that does not. So in summary, community snapshots help you track year-over-year improvement, ensure all areas are being served equitably. They help you apply for additional funding and install infrastructure where it's needed. It also helps contribute to open public health data and helps galvanize the community behind your cause. It also helps direct resources effectively. And as Rob will explain soon, it will help you earn sweep credits. Now, I'd like to take 30 seconds to say how we try and look at these problems of community health and litter holistically, and some litter mitigation strategies we like to employ. So we make this data immediately actionable, and we do that through things like our QR codes and our community dashboard. Like I mentioned before, after the audit in SOMA, we set up these QR codes on the trash cans on the streets of San Francisco. And the goal was to make reporting issues like illegal dumping and hazardous waste as simple and easy as ordering an Uber or an Instacart. No app needed, no installation. Someone just takes out their phone, scans, and submits the issue. And that the teams on the other side can react to it quickly and effectively and see where their maintenance team is going. This way you could turn dumb infrastructure like a dumb trash can into a smart trash can. So it's a pretty good overview of community snapshots and what we do at Rubbish and our mission to create clean, happy, healthy, and sustainable neighborhoods. Thank you very much, and I'll be happy to answer any questions while Rob sets up.
Thanks, Emin. Super interesting stuff. We do have a bunch of questions. I'll field a couple while Rob gets his slides all set. First question is, what is the advantage of using closed source tools to restrict access to data on pollution instead of using open source tools to create open data to democratize access to pollution monitoring tools?
Yeah, well, like all things, data is a trade-off between privacy of the individual and the greater good. So our tools are open source and they allow people to, not open source in the sense of everyone could view the source code and everyone has access to everyone's data, but we allow easy export of that data for the benefit of the community. And when we encourage, when we do these larger audits, specifically to share this data, like I mentioned, that was a really big selling point, to share this data and make it available with the community. But we have to balance that against legitimate privacy rights of the people using the app. So this also tracks people's location data. So it's definitely an opt-in setting that we try and be careful of.
Great. One more for you. If you walk somewhere, for instance, a dead-end street, and you don't find any litter there, will it show up on the map? Or if you find at least one item, will it only show up?
Great question. I had to do a lot of, that was a big question for us in the beginning. So it will still show up. You could walk that entire area and you'll just get a bright green line. That'll make you pretty happy to see that there's no litter around.
Great. I think that does it for now, but I'm sure there's definitely a ton of other questions that we'll field to you at the end after Rob's portion. Looks like Rob's all set up to go. So Rob, whenever you're ready, please take it away. Rob, you are muted.
There we go. You'd think it wasn't my first rodeo. Thanks so much, Emin, for a great presentation. Sam, really appreciate you teeing everything up. We have got a lot of great questions, so I'm gonna try and get us so that we can get more Q&A done. Not unlike many folks, I'm going to be aging myself, but this iconic ad that Emin referred to as the quote 1970s PSAs was one of the important things that got me as a 7 or 8 year old into the environmental movement to begin with. So, you know, we cannot underestimate the power of an effective campaign and you know, and the data and measurement that Emin and SWEEP are trying to promote in the waste industry. A case study that's sort of particular and personal to me. This is a garden that I maintain in New York City. It's in a, we'll call it a transitional neighborhood. Very frequently, this park will be filled with unsheltered people, drug dealers, and occasionally park goers. But there's a very direct correlation and a negative correlation between the presence of park goers and you know, the drug bazaars and the unsheltered population. And one of the big things that results often is litter. And so we get all sorts of it. I mean, sometimes you know, there's a construction site nearby, so back in this area, we had mattresses and refrigerators and unbelievably large pieces of garbage that were back there. But because it was sheltered, you know, people basically set up, you know, encampments and everything like that. But on any given day, I can find things ranging from 3 to 4 large garbage bags worth of material to smaller pieces of material, often which will include needles, and other times, you know, human excrement is not an unfamiliar sight as well, sadly, given the lack of a bathroom in a public park. And you know, we argued with the Parks Department for years and years and years to build a bathroom, and they finally did. But guess what? They don't have enough budget to staff it to keep it safe for people to use. And so we have a bathroom, but it's not open. So these are, you know, the things that we have to deal with. And even when I'm, you know, taking soil and straining it for plastic and stuff like that, you know, there are needles, there are used condoms, there's plastic, and all sorts of unpleasant and hazardous things that are, you know, in the general environment. So at SWEEP, one of the things that we want to do is ensure that waste is addressed comprehensively. We're focused on litter today, and so we have several credits, including required credits, that focus on ensuring that litter is planned for, is capitalized, and is maintained on an operational basis. So the first credit that we have in this, which is a prerequisite, is our comprehensive sustainable materials management policy and program. And one of the things that we focus on is having stakeholder outreach and participation, around which litter is often the focus. And so, something like the rubbish program or other litter tracking devices could be adopted by a city and would qualify as a quote practice and or program that responds to any community complaints in a timely manner. One of the New York City has 311, but the site is so cumbersome and time consuming that I honestly just don't bother because, after several false starts, it usually ends up kicking me somewhere that is not related to what I want to do. And I don't know if they do this to, make the data look better, but it's just not very user friendly. So something like rubbish or other waste tracking systems could make it a lot easier and allow cities to collect a lot more information and engage the community as both citizen data providers and citizen scientists. We have a couple of credits that are focused directly on litter prevention, as well as the infrastructure to support it. And we recognize the importance of beautiful public areas. We've seen the economic benefits. And like I said, I can tell you that there's a very direct correlation between the public using the park where I work and the amount of litter and dirtiness. When it is cleaner and litter-free, there are several times the number of local citizens or tourists that sit down, that stop, that actually enjoy the beauty. If the place is dirty, they keep on walking. And it's sad because the whole point of having a park is where somebody can sit down and relax and hopefully, get some respite from the grit and grime of urban existence. So, our litter prevention and reduction infrastructure credit has three elements. We look at prevention, which is obviously which is very important for cities to generate less disposable material. Given the amount of forever chemicals in disposable dishes and flatware, et cetera, and the emerging information about the impact of those forever chemicals, PFAS, et cetera. There's probably also a yet untold but potentially significant human health element beyond just the waste reduction aspect. We also give credit for having receptacles that are appropriately distributed. Something like rubbish can help determine what appropriately distributed means. I've got two very busy corners on both sides of my park. I've been arguing with the Parks Department and the Sanitation Department for 5 years to get permanent bins installed on those corners, and they just keep tossing the question back and forth between them like a hot potato. So hopefully something like this can give the data about the importance of it, because it would be pretty easy to demonstrate the impact of before and after. And then, with the QR codes, that kind of thing can help with enforcement because it would make it easier than working through the very clunky 311 system in New York. Education and engagement on waste management policy and programs generally is something that SWEEP supports. It is part of the triple bottom line portion of the tripod that SWEEP is trying to do in sustainable materials management. And so we have programs on education and engagement focused specifically on litter, as well as source reduction and reuse. And so what we are asking people to do is to demonstrate that information about these elements, whether they're focused on the public, whether they're focused on community groups, whether they're focused on government employees, programs to educate people about reducing litter and waste generation, is something that SWEEP gives credit for. And we also look at source reduction, reuse, and disposal as a way of crediting under this credit as well. So things like rubbish can be used in numerous things. Although the broken windows neighborhood policy can be poorly implemented, I think there is a lot to the basic theory that one piece of rubbish becomes two, and then quickly 6, 10, and it can pile up pretty quickly if people aren't on top of it. And so what we hope to do through SWEEP, and what can be verified through tools like rubbish, is how programs are doing, what works, what doesn't work, broader engagement of the citizenry in keeping the neighborhood and the city writ large cleaner. So SWEEP is a market transformation standard. As Sam mentioned earlier, we are like LEED for solid waste. We are the first and so far only national voluntary environmental performance standard for the waste management industry. Our goal is to reward and identify best sustainable practices and policies, and also provide a roadmap for companies and jurisdictions that are starting at a certain place and want to improve over time. We believe that our third-party verification, which is often data-based, we ask people to collect information in a variety of measures, and the SWEEP corollary of you can't manage what you don't measure is you can't measure what you haven't defined. So having things where heat maps and frequency counts and geolocation are going to be very, very important for addressing widespread and broadcast urban nuisances such as litter. We are setting out to create a consistent set of metrics for performance benchmarking, and in so doing, and as we get more information over time, we will be able to more clearly define those and reduce the gray areas between some of the boundaries and the definitions. SWEEP as a system is designed to cover 75% of the market. SWEEP Plus is our leadership standard that is being piloted right now. We are developing SWEEP Zero committees. If anybody on the call would be interested in joining a SWEEP Zero committee or becoming a member of SWEEP, feel free to drop us a line at info@sweepstandard.com. And we will be also working to develop a mid-market standard. Our hope and our goal is to work with both SWANA and NWRA on that effort so that we can have a system of standards that addresses the vast majority of the market and creates a clear roadmap from where we are to hopefully a zero waste situation in the not too distant future. We work with local governments. We work with material management companies across the spectrum of the industry, as well as other very important stakeholders and constituents who are interested in sustainable materials management, including nonprofits and other non-governmental organizations, campuses, universities, et cetera. So SWEEP has a big tent, and we would love to work with you and to bring your knowledge into our crowdsourced solution. Like LEED, we have a 100-point system plus some bonus points. Our emphasis early on is on developing a policy framework and a data collection and analysis framework. And that's what the first two categories address. And then we get into the instrumentalities of the solid waste supply chain, including collection, recovery, and disposal. We do not give any points for actually disposing of materials. However, best management practices such as reducing litter around waste infrastructure, managing and measuring and controlling methane emissions, those are the kinds of things that are rewarded. Over time, we will be giving less credit for the policy framework and the data collection, and more credit given towards how those policies are implemented and what the results of the analysis show in terms of improvement or achievement against a benchmark. So I'm hoping that we can get to all or most of the remaining questions that were very, very interesting. And so, Sam, why don't you take it away?
Absolutely. Thanks for that, Rob. We have, like you said, we have a bunch of questions, and here is the first one. This one's for Emin. Or Emin, is the app available in the US as of now, or is there a plan to expand this globally?
It's available everywhere. You can download it from the iOS App Store. And we're working on a web-based version and an Android version as well.
Great. Are tents considered litter given homeless populations in particular cities?
No.
Right. Do you have any examples of how rubbish has been used with K through 12 schools, for example, to support student action projects, or ideas on how this could be done?
We do have an example of a freshman in college, which is pretty close to that range. It's a freshman in San Diego, I want to say Pepperdine University, and you could view his story on our blog at rubbish.love/blog. He did a great experiment tracking the litter that accumulates on his beaches that he goes to surf at. I think that's something that the local news covered and made him a little bit of a local celebrity.
Perfect. Might you consider, or have you approached Google about teaming with them in some way?
Actually, Google was one of the first people to write about us in the early days. So we also, if you look at our blog, we link to an example or case study that we did with Google. But things are always changing, and it will be a good idea to get back in touch with them, since we've done a lot since our last collaboration with them.
Do you intend to have MSMEs and Fortune 500 / 1000 companies to use the app, considering that ESG reports are rampant today?
Yes, and that many companies actually have already reached out to us about that, and that is something that we do engage companies, especially ones with a physical brick and mortar presence, about doing things like auditing or surveying their footprint around the blocks that they are. So example like big coffee shops or big chains could show that they're committed to reducing plastic waste and food waste in their neighborhood. So the answer is yes.
Great. Does the Rubbish app's AI recognize the item or items in the photo taken by the app user, or does the app user select the item from the menu and also take the photo?
So we've been working on the AI for a while, and it's not there. It's not good enough to be reliable at this moment. There's a lot of challenges around. It's pretty easy to recognize a cigarette, but then it gets pretty challenging pretty quickly when you have multiple pieces of litter in frame on grass versus mud, nighttime versus daytime. And we just feel like we haven't gotten it to a place where it really benefits the user enough in comparison to the battery that it drains. But it is something that we're working on.
Great. What sets Rubbish apart from other existing litter tracking apps? Examples are literati.org or National Geographic Debris Tracker.
Yeah, we love all the other litter tracking apps. We actually just had members of the Literati team over my place for dinner. So I say use the tool that works the best for you. In the end, we're all working on a big important task. So I feel the more people working on it, the better. That being said, we just take a kind of a different approach on the data gathering and the process to do that. We emphasize things like those snail trails that you see that cover areas that show all the places you've gone, as well as the footsteps you've taken. And we mark each time you go outside as a rubbish run and kind of treat it as an individual activity. And we just make a lot of different choices when it comes to user interaction. We try and highlight someone going down a street and categorizing all the litter that they find, versus I think Literati has a lot more spot data where people will happen to report places around. But again, you use the tools that suit your needs and you enjoy the most.
Great. This might be the last one for you, Emin. Did you research what exactly was decreasing litter? Was it the activity of doing the audits? People felt like action was happening, etc. What changed?
That's a big question, and it's a lot of factors, and it's hard to cover everything. But a lot of things, like I mentioned, was the placement of infrastructure in the correct places, sharing this data and communicating effectively. Social pressure was just another example of something that was important. And that was shown by seeing people out there cleaning. Having cleaner streets meant that they tended to stay cleaner. And the fact that people were paying attention to the community were all factors. Yeah, and I see one more question about how to access the data within the app. You just go to settings and you can export your data. And something that we're launching soon are teams where you could get a group of individuals together to pool their data and openly say, hey, I want to share my data openly with this team and be able to export and combine your efforts. So that's something that's coming out in the next 2 months.
But it would be up to like a city to publish their own heat map if they want.
Exactly. So it's up to, again, we take privacy seriously. So if we are commissioned to do something and not share the data or keep it internal and allow the city to share it at their own when they feel is best, that's an option. And all users within the app have a privacy toggle that says, open data or closed data. But we like I mentioned earlier, we always encourage people, especially when cities are doing this analysis, to kind of share the data, or at least the summaries, with their constituents.
Awesome. I think that does it for our Q&A right now. Just again, a huge thanks to both Rob and Emin for the super interesting presentations today. Thanks everyone for joining. If you'd like to access the recording of this webinar or just like to stay up to date on future Sweep webinar events, you can follow Sweep on LinkedIn, visit our website, subscribe to our YouTube channel, or join our mailing list. All of these links have been provided in the chat. As you can see on the screen right now, we have some great summer webinars in the pipeline over the coming months. Be sure to tune in for our July webinar on ESG and waste management, our August webinar on third-party verification and net zero goals with representatives from LEAD, True, and Sweep. And in September, we'll be hearing from one of our other Sweep members, Loci Controls, on their innovative automated landfill gas monitoring and measurement technology. All these should be super interesting, so be on the lookout for more details to come over the next couple months. And that's it for today's webinar, folks. Have a great rest of your week, everyone, and see you next time. Bye for now.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.